Barbara sent me a number of labeled and unlabeled photos, very centric around her side of the Schultz family, her father, her grandfather. But then she sent me the one I showed you first, this Rosetta Stone of the family. So I started to dig into, now this one, she didn't know most of the people in the photo. She knew a few people. She knew this guy and she knew this guy, and we sat on the phone and we passed emails back and forth. We talked about various pictures, and she said, "Do you have?" And she didn't send me everything she had, but she said, "Do you have the one with Anna and the cow?" Yeah, I've got that one too. They must have printed, and actually the family had printed that one on a postcard and sent it to like everyone. So everyone has a picture of Anna and the cow. And she says, "Well, do you have one of great-grandpa Charles in the chair with the dog?" I'm saying, "I don't have any pictures of Charles. I've got one that's marked Alexander sitting in a chair with a dog." She goes, no, that's great-grandpa Charles. That's Charles Schultz. I said, "If that's Charles Schultz, then the dog must be Snoopy." So now I've got two pictures of Alexander Schultz that I can cross out the Alexander and say, "That's Charles Schultz. That's my great-grandfather." It's not some unknown that it was labeled Alexander, and I could never figure out how he fit into the family. So between photos I had, photos she had, we started doing some facial comparisons. So I knew that this is my great-grandfather and great-grandmother, Mary and Fritz. There they are, Fritz and Mary. So that one was easy for me. I always thought this guy was Alexander. She's telling me this is Charles, so boom, she knew that that was Charles and Anna. And now I know. So I was able to help her with Fritz and Mary. She was able to help me with Charles. She sent this picture of her grandfather. The younger one is Otto, and the older one is John. And they match up with these two. Now, in the second picture, Otto is actually standing up on the fence, so he looks taller. But there's Otto and John. And then there's this girl way off to one side that she didn't know, I didn't know, but I have a photo of my great-grandmother Mary with this same girl. So there's obviously some close connection, whether it's a tight friend connection or some sort of family connection. Still don't know who this girl is. Now, to date that big photo, again, use the census. I'm looking at the family. This is the 1900 census. I know the ages now of all the kids in the photo. I know who Mary is. I know who John, I know it says Arthur, but it's really Otto. I know who Mary is, I know who John is, I know who Otto is, and I'm going to guess at the three youngest because I don't have additional photos. Huldah, Dorothy, and Donald. Dorothy and Donald being twins. So I've got their ages. Nope, I'm going to back up. Sorry. I've got their ages. I'm going back to the photo now. I'm looking at the youngest kids, and I'm saying this photo has got to be, based on all their ages, 1898. One of the other clues from the census I want to point out is the address. They're living St. Louis at 4145, if I pronounce it right, Kossuth Ave. I plugged that address into Google. It's one of those brick houses. So part of the evidence from the photo is they're standing in front of a brick house. I can't tell if it's a single family, multifamily, but it's a brick house with some very unique architecture to it. Google Map wasn't able to narrow it down which house was 4145, but there's a row of brick houses with looks like porches. Now these all have porches over the front that my photo doesn't have, so maybe the porches were added later. Or it's possible that they're not in front of one of these houses. only going to St. Louis or getting a friend or a family member to, can you do me a favor? Go to 4145 and get me a picture so I can compare. But at some point, I'm going to solve which house is there based on the picture, where the photo was taken. So now we're back here, and I can start putting some names on the photo. I've got Charles and Anna. Based on their ages and their similarity in facial features, I'm saying that these youngest ones are the twins, Donald and Dorothy, their next oldest sister, Hulda. We've got Otto and John over there, which we identified earlier. We've got Fritz and Mary. Now, I know that they weren't married till 1902. This is approximately 1898. So they're in the middle of courtship here. Then I've got all these mystery, one too many mysteries. Now I can see that there's a resemblance among these other girls, especially this girl here on the left and that girl right there on the right. There's a strong resemblance among them. Also, even though it's black and white, which has turned sepia, which has been photocopied, and there seems to be kind of a ginger colored to their hair. So there's that connection, that they all seem to be redheads or gingers. Still don't know who they are, but my current theory, since I have looked at as much family connection as possible, my current theory is that they are very close friends. Maybe they lived next door. Maybe it's a two-family dwelling. They live upstairs, downstairs. And if you didn't notice, there's a little mysterious girl in the window. Know even less about her. Why wasn't she outside? Maybe it's not their house. So now, between what I know about the people and what Barbara knew about the people, we have a lot more common knowledge about the photo that we can share. And the third and last case study is the marriage of Benjamin Hallett. So I got this photo, and I know it's provenance. I know it came from my wife's mother's mother's mother's. And the family history, it was labeled the marriage of Benjamin Hallett with no other labeling. Family history says that the gentleman with the beard in the back, looking out of the corner of his eye, is the great-grandfather, William Jonathan Ovens. That's what the family says. Now, I look at this photo, and I think it's amazing for whatever time period it was, just because look at all the drama in the photo. I mean, William's looking out of the corner of his eye. This woman down here is sitting on the ground, looking away from the photographer, leaning against the older woman. Benjamin doesn't appear to be looking at his wife. He's looking over here. You know, everyone seems to be looking in a different direction other than the camera. There's just a lot of drama going on here. Again, it is labeled the marriage. So my first clue is this has got to be Benjamin. This has got to be his wife. It was passed down through the Ovens family, so there's got to be a lot of Ovens folks in this photo. So what I started with was a lot of photos unlabeled. Unlabeled, unlabeled, labeled on the back as Manoa, 1872, and we saw this one earlier, one labeled. This one is labeled just with William Jonathan Ovens and an arrow. Nobody else is labeled. The Ovens brothers, I'm not sure if that was labeled or just guessed based on the other picture. Unlabeled, unlabeled, and this one's great. This is the sister who married Ben. You don't know her name? So I was started with a great collection, but unlabeled, and as we'll see, mislabeled. start with this one. This one to me is the closest one in time to the marriage photo. I'm looking at the photographer. I'm looking at the location in Cirencester. This is a bunch of English photos. I looked up this. I looked up Cirencester, and I figured that this is where the Ovens lived. And most of the time, a wedding happens in the wife's parish. So I'm looking for weddings that took place with Benjamin Hallett in Cirencester, and I find Benjamin Hallett, Cirencester, and the date of this wedding is July 1864. I was able to find the matching wife record, Eliza Cogswell Ovens. There's my Ovens name, Cirencester, matching records. Now, in the marriage books, they go alphabetical. So it's a good thing there's an index, or you'd be searching forever to find the matching entry, 6A 580, to find that it's husband and wife. So now I know her name. I look at the census, the British census for, since I know it's 1864, I'm going to look for the 1861 census. And now I've got a picture, because what do I know? I know that there is a Manoah. I know now that there's an Eliza. I know that there's a William Jonathan, and that they're in Cirencester. So I find this family, which has two of those, Eliza Cogswell and Manoah Weatherall, and that's enough information for me to say, I've got the family now. So now I've got parents, Joseph and Jane, and 4 of their kids, Eliza, Jane, Manoah, and Edward. I continued collecting census records to get a complete picture of who all the family members are. So going back to here, comparing the photos that I've got, the census records with all the names and ages, I can start finding out that we've got a bit of a discrepancy. So I've got a number of photos at home that say that the guy with the beard in the background, that is great-great-grandpa William Jonathan Ovens. It's not. There's absolutely no way that, based on the ages in the census records and the ages in this picture, which we know has got to be 1864 or 1865 if they took it later, but it's roughly around 1864. I know the ages of all the kids in 1864. That can't be William. Based on all the relative ages, this kid in the back is William. So, you know, my wife still disagrees. He can't be, you know, but it's what her mother's mother told her, and they've lived with that the guy with the beard is William Jonathan. So I now know that's William. That's Thomas, not the William that they all thought it was. I can start putting names on everybody based on the relative ages and the other photos I've got. That's Manoah, and that's Sister Anne. We know Ben. There's brother Edward. And based on the relationship, the older woman is sitting next to the bride, more than likely her mother. So that makes her Jane Cogswell Ovens. And that's Eliza Cogswell Ovens. And another sister, Jane. That does leave a number of individuals, 4 women, unaccounted for. There are no other sisters. There are more children from a Jane Cogswell Ovens here is a second wife. So some of these older women in the back could be siblings from a previous marriage. I know at this time, 1864, Thomas is married. One of these other women could be his wife.